Learning English with White House updates. The White House, the big building where the President of the United States lives and works, had some important news this week. Let's talk about some of the things that happened there. One of the things the president, whose name is President Trump, did was about showers. You know, the place where you wash yourself with water. Well, there are rules about how much water can come out of a shower head. These rules are made to help save water, so we don't use too much of it. A little while ago, some people made a rule that said shower heads should not let out too much water each minute. This was to help everyone be careful with water. But President Trump said he wants to change this rule. He said he wants to make America's showers great again. What he means is that he thinks people should be able to have more water coming out of their shower heads if they want to. He signed a special paper, called an executive order, to try and change the rule. This order says that the old rules about saving water from shower heads are not going to be used anymore. The people who work with President Trump at the White House said that the old rules were overly complicated. That means they thought the rules were too hard to understand. They also said that these rules made something simple, like taking a shower, into a bureaucratic nightmare. Bureaucratic means having to do with lots of rules and paperwork, and nightmare means something very bad and upsetting. So, they thought the old rules made taking a shower too difficult because of too many rules about the water. President Trump and his team believe that people should be able to choose how much water they want to use when they take a shower. They think the government should not tell people how much water they can use for something like this. Now, let's talk about something else that happened at the White House. It has to do with news and telling people what is happening. There is a big news company called the Associated Press, or AP for short. This company has reporters who go to different places and write news stories so that everyone can know what's going on. Sometimes, these reporters go to the White House to find out what the president and other important people are doing and saying. They write stories about it so that newspapers, websites, and TV stations can share the news with everyone. Recently, the White House had some problems with the Associated Press. It seems that the White House didn't want to give the AP reporters the same access, or chances to go to events and get information, as other news reporters. This happened because of something the AP wrote about renaming a part of the sea called the Gulf of Mexico. The White House didn't like what the AP did. But in America, there is something very important called the First Amendment. This is part of the rules that say what the government can and cannot do. The First Amendment says that everyone has the right to freedom of speech. This means people can say what they think, and news companies can write what they think, without the government stopping them. A judge, who is a special person who works in the courts and decides if things are fair and follow the rules, looked at what the White House did to the AP. The judge said that the White House cannot punish a news company just because they don't like what the news company said or wrote. The judge said that this goes against the First Amendment, which protects the freedom of the press, meaning news organizations. So, the judge made a ruling. A ruling is like an official decision. The judge ruled that the White House has to give the Associated Press reporters their full access back. This means the AP reporters should have the same chances to go to White House events and get information as all the other news reporters. The judge also said that the government, which includes the people working at the White House, has 1 week to respond to this decision. They can either do what the judge said and give the AP full access back, or they can try to appeal the decision. To appeal means to ask a higher court to look at the decision again and see if it was right. So, right now, the White House has to decide what to do. They can follow the judge's order, or they can try to fight it in court. This is a very important issue because it has to do with whether the government can limit what news companies can do just because they don't like their stories. These are just two of the things that have been happening at the White House recently. One is about how much water comes out of our showers, and the other is about how news companies get information so they can tell everyone what's going on. Both of these things are important in different ways. Now, let's talk about some other interesting things that happened at the White House. Sometimes, the president meets with other important people to talk about different things. Recently, President Trump had a meeting with the governor of Michigan, whose name is Governor Whitmer. Michigan is a state in the United States. It seems like the meeting was friendly, which means that President Trump and Governor Whitmer got along well during their talk in the Oval Office. The Oval Office is a special room in the White House where the president often meets with people. Earlier on this same day, Governor Whitmer gave a speech. In her speech, she talked about some things that she agreed on with President Trump. This suggests that even though they might have different ideas about some things, they also find areas where they have the same opinions. It's important for leaders to be able to talk to each other and find common ground, even if they don't agree on everything. Another important thing that happened was that a man named Mike Huckabee has been confirmed as the U.S. ambassador to Israel. An ambassador is a special person who represents the United States in another country. Israel is a country in the Middle East that is a very important ally, or friend, of the United States. Mike Huckabee is someone who has supported Israel for a long time. When someone is confirmed as an ambassador, it means that the people in the government who need to approve of this choice have said yes, and now he can officially take on this important job. As the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mr. Huckabee will work to keep the good relationship between the two countries strong and to help with any issues that might come up. We also heard some news about a man named RFK Jr. RFK Jr. is working on trying to change how healthcare works in America. Healthcare is all about keeping people healthy and treating them when they are sick. It includes doctors, hospitals, and medicines. According to a news report, it seems like the things RFK Jr. is trying to do to change healthcare are happening faster than people expected. The report didn't give many details about what exactly is changing or how fast it's happening, but it suggests that there are some significant developments in the area of healthcare that RFK Jr. is involved in. Healthcare is a very important topic for many people, so any big changes are usually watched closely. There were also some reports going around about a military parade. A military parade is when soldiers and their equipment march together, often to celebrate something or to show the strength of a country's armed forces. Some news stories said that there might be a military parade planned for President Trump's birthday. However, the White House said that these reports were not true. They said that there was no military parade scheduled for the president's birthday. But, some officials in the area around Washington, D.C., which is where the White House is located, said that the government had asked some questions about the possibility of having a parade. So, while the White House denied that a parade was planned, it seems like the idea might have been considered at some point. In other news, President Trump made a decision about a top military official who was working with NATO. NATO is a group of countries that work together for defense and security. This official was a woman named Navy Vice Admiral Shoshana Chatfield. She was a high-ranking officer in the Navy. President Trump decided to fire, or remove, Vice Admiral Chatfield from her position. This happened after some news organizations that tend to support President Trump criticized some comments she had made about diversity. Diversity means having people from many different backgrounds and groups working together. It seems that these news organizations did not agree with her comments on this topic. This decision by President Trump to fire a top military official because of comments she made shows that the president pays attention to what is being said in the news and that he is willing to take action based on it. It also highlights the ongoing discussions and sometimes disagreements about topics like diversity in the military and other organizations. Another important issue that has been in the news is about tariffs. Tariffs are like taxes that are put on goods that are brought into a country from other countries. President Trump has put tariffs on goods from some other countries as a way to try and help American businesses. However, these tariffs have caused some problems. The prices of some things have gone up, and there has been some turmoil, or upset, in the markets where stocks and other financial things are bought and sold. Because of these problems, some people within President Trump's own political party, the Republicans, have started to criticize these tariff policies. They are worried about the negative effects the tariffs might be having on the American economy. At the same time, the White House has been keeping the world waiting to see if President Trump will put even more new tariffs in place. There is a deadline coming up for these new tariffs, and the White House has not said clearly what they plan to do. This uncertainty, or not knowing what will happen, can also cause problems for businesses and the economy around the world. Finally, we heard about a press briefing that was held by the press secretary, whose name is Caroline Leavitt. A press briefing is a meeting where someone from the White House talks to reporters and answers their questions about what is going on. During this press briefing, which happened on April 8, 2025, Ms. Leavitt talked about several different topics. One of them was deficits, which is when the government spends more money than it takes in. She also talked about trade, which is the buying and selling of goods between different countries. And she discussed President Trump's energy plans, especially about something called clean coal. This suggests that the White House is focusing on these different issues and wants to share information about them with the public through the news media.